All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the TapIn Football podcast. Tobi is taking a break from hosting duties today because obviously the topic of discussion is going to be mainly Arsenal focused. So I'm here to step up. So you got Dan Coogs, and we've got a special guest with us today, Mr. Charles Watts, goal.com Arsenal correspondent there. So I've been, following you on Twitter for a number of years now, always there with some of the latest and reliable, I should add, Arsenal scoop. So thank you for coming on the podcast today.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to this episode as well because it's rare. I always get shut down on this podcast whenever I try to talk about Arsenal. So
you talk about Arsenal all the time. You talk about Arsenal all the time.
It's all the time to you, but to me, it's not enough. So today's my time to shine there, basically. So yeah. So firstly, I think what would be good for our listeners, Charles, is if you can tell us a bit about yourself and your journey into journalism, like how you ended up at goal.com, that kind of thing. So I think that'd be really interesting to hear.
All right. Okay. Well, it's take you back a fair bit. If you want the whole story, I mean, it started about, what were you now, 2020? So it started about 19 years ago. I just got back from Australia. I finished school, A-levels, when I was travelling, did the old year away in Australia, forgot about school for a while. Came back and went straight into a journalism course. It was like 5 months in London, and did that, finished it, and thought, what the bloody hell am I going to do now? Because job offers weren't exactly flooding in. And then eventually I got an offer as a junior reporter at one of my local papers in Slough, the Slough Express. Stayed there for a fair bit as a junior news reporter. The joys of parish council meetings, planning meetings, and that went on for a good couple of years on no money whatsoever. And I forgot it. There was times when you're just like, oh my god, what am I doing? This is ridiculous. And listening to two old guys arguing about a fence post that's been put up half a metre away from where it should have been. Thinking, what is it? But my plan was always to get into football, and everyone said, learn in news. It's a good way of grounding and how you sort of build stories and generate contacts and things like that. So I did it, and stayed there, passed my senior exams while I was there, and then moved to another paper in the Trinity Mirror Group, which is the Reading Chronicle, to the sports desk there, and that was how I got into sport. And it was a really good time for me, actually, because I sort of arrived there just as Reading got promoted from my first season where there was Reading winning the championship with 106 points and going up to the Premier League, which was a fantastic season, a historic season for them, and sort of be a part of that and follow it as I was like the second. There was a main Reading reporter there, and I was the second guy shadowing him the whole time, and I just learned so much from it. And then had 2 years in the Premier League with Reading, and it was fantastic. Just like I said, it taught me an awful lot, and sort of stayed around there. Then I moved to one of my local papers to kind of become a deputy sports editor, and was working football in non-league with Maidenhead United, and went back to Reading to the evening paper there for a good couple of years again. Reading's just down the road from me. It's a great club, and a fantastic few years at Reading. Absolutely loved it. And it was such an interesting time in takeovers and the club nearly going bust. Football's great at times as well. Yapstam came in towards the end. It was really an exciting season. Missed out on the Premier League to Huddersfield, and that was the time I got the offer of a job for Football London, which was obviously launching back then. It was a brand new website, and it was a really interesting project. And I knew the guy who was launching it, and they knew my allegiance to Arsenal, and so he offered me the position. I took that, and 3 fantastic years of Football London. We really grew that website, and it's kind of what it is now. And it was brilliant. It was kind of living the dream. It was, for me anyway. When I was a kid at school, everyone said, "What do you want to be?" And it was always, "I want to be an Arsenal reporter. I want to be paid to watch Arsenal." Once I realised I weren't quite good enough to play for him, I thought, what's the next best thing? Get paid to watch him, and that's what happened. And I was at Football London. It was great, and really sort of got used to the patch, the Arsenal patch. Got to know everyone. Sort of developed myself as a journalist, I thought, and then moved on to Goal when that opportunity arose, and here I am now. I've been at Goal. I think I started in April last year, and it's been fantastic. I love Goal. Just the reach of Goal, the size of it across the world it's a huge thing, and I didn't really realize until I arrived there just how big it was. it's the biggest football website in the world, and it's in so many different regions, so many different countries, and it's just a fantastic place to work.
Nice, thank you for that. Really interesting journey. So, if we get stuck, I guess, straight into the sort of Arsenal news, I think probably at the start of this quarantine period, all the talk was about the players taking pay cuts or pay deferrals and stuff like that. And I think from my research and what I've seen, Arsenal seem to be one of the only clubs which players in the Premier League have actually taken full pay cuts for the foreseeable, with their wages being promised, I guess, if they meet certain criteria for the end of the season, that kind of thing. Yeah. But what do you think was
Everton have. I think Bournemouth, the management staff. I can't remember. There's been one or two others as well, but yeah.
Because I saw that a few clubs had taken sort of voluntary ones, and a lot of them had taken sort of wage deferrals with a promise that, like, for a few months, then they'll get the money back once football resumes, that kind of thing. But I thought Arsenal were one of the only ones where the players actually said they're taking a full pay cut, and that money's not necessarily going to be repaid back to them. So then, is that mainly from a sort of solvency point from the club, or was there other sort of drivers behind that?
No, I mean, mainly it was the club spelled out to the players just how serious the financial outlook was and is, given the coronavirus outbreak. I think Arsenal, I think you might be right in terms of wage cuts. I can't think of another Premier League club that's actually agreed a full-on wage cut. A few of them have done the deferrals where they're going to be getting the money back, and they're sort of stopping it for a period of time. But Arsenal, like I said, for a 12-month period, have done the 12.5% cut. And considering they were being told by the PFA not to do it at that time, don't take pay cuts, don't agree to it at all. It was quite impressive work from Mikel Arteta. I think, who had a big part to play in it, because the players were quite reluctant, from what I heard, and there was a lot of players who weren't sure about exactly why they should be taking pay cuts when the club's owned by a billionaire owner, who they wanted to know why he couldn't sort of foot the bill, what the financial situation really was. And Hector Bellerin played a big part in the talks as well. Credit to him, and I've got it done. I think it says a lot about the squad. I don't think it was universally liked across the squad. It did take a fair bit of convincing for it to happen, and not everyone's done it. There's still a few players who haven't. I mean, Ozil obviously was named afterwards as one of the players who hasn't yet agreed to it. I think talks with Ozil are still kind of going on, but I'm not sure they're going to come to a fruitful conclusion. But I think it is just mainly because of the financial situation at Arsenal is pretty bleak. I mean, it's pretty bleak everywhere. It's not just at Arsenal, but their wage bill is crippling. It has been for some time. They've got Champions League wage bill when they're in a Europa League club now, and they might not even be a Europa League club next season. So it's been a real issue around Arsenal's neck for some time now, and it was the club believed that it was something they needed to happen. And like I said, it took some convincing, but the players agreed to it.
But my question on this, though, is you touched on the fact that Arsenal are owned by a billionaire, but I know the situation isn't as simple as the owner pumping money into the club. But in times and circumstances such as these, why isn't Stan Kroenke making an active interest with regards to actually pumping some money into the club? Or if he is, why don't the public or why don't Arsenal fans know about it?
The club are quite keen to keep Kroenke's name out of it. I mean, from what I've been told, that Kroenke he's not pumping money in, but he's covering debts. I mean, Arsenal, when they started this, they had revenue sort of reserves of about 130 million, or the last accounts showed that. I think by the time this started, that had come down a little bit, but they're into their overdraft now. They're eating through money so quickly, just in a matter of months, and Kroenke's sort of agreed that he will, the club aren't going to go bust during this period, and Kroenke's has agreed to cover what costs are needed to keep things running and keep things running smoothly. Like they've never looked to furlough staff or anything like that, and that's come from Kroenke's allowing that to happen, because they could have easily said, "We sod it, we're on the other side of America, we don't care what the PR is going to say, just do it," but they haven't. So he is covering some costs, but he's not going to plough a load of money. He's never done that. Arsenal still operate at a self-sustainable model. They'll always do that. And he's got a lot. I mean, it has hit Kroenke this because he's got a lot of, it's not just Arsenal. It's only sports entities. He's got all the clubs, the franchises over in America, all of which have had their revenue streams switched off. And he's obviously got a multi-billion-pound stadium that he's building over there.
Exactly.
Which is not. This hasn't come at a great time for that. So he is hemorrhaging money as well, but it's not just Kroenke. When you're thinking of money he's got, and thinking of money more importantly his wife's got as well. Yeah. And her business hasn't done too bad out of this pandemic.
Yeah, is he a billionaire as well?
Yeah, she owns Walmart. She's the heir to the whole Walmart.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was reading that his wealth has actually gone up during this coronavirus, just because of obviously his wife's as well. So despite all of the things happening with Corona, that he'd actually managed to do well out of it. But obviously agreed that his sports team. So then, are you saying that that's where sort of his involvement will end? Sort of like once we come out of Corona virus, and maybe in a year's time when fans are allowed back into stadiums or whatever, that he will then stop any sort of support that he's been actively showing then, really.
It'll go back to the Arsenal we know, and it still is basically that Arsenal now. It is just still a self-sustainable club, and as soon as this is switched off, the guarantees that he'll offer against various loans they might have to take to see him through this period will go back, and he'll take a back seat again, because he doesn't, he's obviously the guy with the money and is billed as the owner, but he doesn't really do too much. Josh is far more involved than Stan is in terms of the day-to-day running of Arsenal, and once this is over, then it will go back to that. It'll be, Josh will play an interest. We'll see Josh over at games. We'll very rarely, unless Arsenal get to the final. Although he's saying that he didn't even turn up at the last final they went to. Yeah. To be fair, that was Baku though, so I'm not surprised. We won't see too much of Stan once this is all over. And to be honest, I don't think many people are too bothered about that. It's whenever he comes over anyway, it just draws an angry response.
Yeah. So silent Stan will remain silent. Then I guess. So I guess that's a good segue into one of my next questions. So, which is basically just around the leadership of the club in general. So, obviously, after Wenger left, you had the new sort of regime that came in with Raul and Vinay, and then I think Mislintat came and went, and then we've got Edu there as well. And I think Josh is sort of overseeing the lot of them. So, what is the general feeling around the club about that ownership structure? Because I think the feelings are very mixed amongst fans, and I think from my perspective, I don't really know what Edu is doing or has been doing since he's come into that job as technical director. So, because to me, that seems as the guy that's sort of running all sort of football operations, how we play, to sort of what the academy's doing, that kind of thing, make sure all of that's aligned. But I'm not too sure if I don't know if he's doing anything really.
I think he does. He is quite a big influence at the club, Edu. I think the confusion comes in terms of Raul and him when it comes to sort of transfers and deals. Who's the guy out there doing the deal? Is it Raul and his agent buddies, or is it Edu? But in terms, I mean, he does have a big influence on the club. Him and Per Mertesacker got a very good relationship, and Edu takes a big he doesn't run it. I mean, Per obviously runs the academy, but Edu has a big influence in how things are working, and they have regular meetings. He's regularly at Hayland, and it's an interesting one when you speak to people and speak to agents, and I speak to a fair few agents. The sort of feeling of how Arsenal run, there is a view of a slight uncertainty in terms of exactly who makes the big decisions at Arsenal. Is it Raul? Is it, what exactly do the Kroenkes say? But it's very different. The whole situation wasn't helped by Ivan doing one, like within a year of his big plan coming together. Yeah, I mean, he got rid of Arsene. It's like his time to really shine after 10 years of sitting in Arsene's shadow, and then just as he does it, he disappears and creates this big power vacuum at the club, which ended with Raul sort of seizing power and Sven leaving, which was, I still think, a massive, massive shame that Arsenal missed out on Sven. Only had him for a year, and it created this big power vacuum. And Raul obviously won that battle, seized control, and not seized control. That's a bit over the top, possibly, but he's a guy but he has day-to-day running. He's the most powerful man in Arsenal now, and he gets to do what he wants in terms of the transfer market. He basically runs it. The Kroenkes give him free reign almost to do what they want. The Kroenkes obviously have to sign it off when it gets to that stage, but Raul's a guy who looks at who they want to get. He's a guy who uses his agents to do the deals mainly, and that's how it all works. I heard one once that Arsenal described as someone described Arsenal as the. Actually, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say it. Actually, it's
you got to say
it. That's a little bit too off the record. I'm not going to say it. I shouldn't have even started that sentence. So
I know it's something hilarious. I know
the people look at them a little bit. I think suspiciously, again's the wrong word. It's just that everyone knew what Arsenal were about when Wenger was in control. Wenger, everything went through Arsene Wenger, but now people aren't quite too sure in terms of who's the man with the major sway and who they should go to talk to, and it does add up to a little bit of confusion.
Do you think that fans are right to sort of be a bit worried about sort of being in agents' back pockets and doing sort of backhanders to get the deals that you want done? Because I think I was reading about us having to pay something like 24-25 million just to get David Luiz in on deadline day, and then that might mean you've seen it at Chelsea in the past, in order to get Oscar off to China or something, that means you have to take Alexandre Pato on a year-long loan or something like that. So do you reckon fans are right to be sort of worried about similar things happening at Arsenal?
Yeah, I'm worried. I don't like it too much. Some of the deals and some of the people that Arsenal are working with don't have the best reputation when it comes to how clubs they've got involved with have come out of those things. You only have to. Keir Drabshin obviously is very influential at Arsenal now, and you sort of look at he's basically he's run things at QPR, wherever Mark Hughes went, basically Keir went, and those clubs didn't exactly come out too well out of it. Pretty sure Keir did, but the clubs didn't. And
he always comes out well.
Yeah, he always does, obviously, and that's
he's always come out well.
Yeah, and he, when you see him in the director's box next to Raul now and high fiving. I know he's an Arsenal fan, but you saw him at the Cedric Suarez deal, and he's not even Suarez's agent. Yeah, he was influential in the man getting him to Arsenal. We only see Suarez even play a game yet, and whether we even see him play a game, we don't know. So it's not great, I don't think, and but it's kind of like a lot of people wanted it when Arsene was there, didn't they? They didn't want one man, the manager controlling everything, and they wanted someone else to take control of the transfers and have a coach who just worried about coaching players. And now that's what Arsenal have got, and some people don't like it. So it's tough. You can't have it both ways, really. So I do think it's worrying. But the one thing I am still happy with that Arsenal do still rely on scouting as well. Look at Gabriel Martinelli. That wasn't a Raul signing. That was done through scouting. That was Francis Cagiel, who's the head of international recruitment, really respected figure at Arsenal. He did that. He got Martinelli in, and that was through proper scouting. And Guendouzi as well was there. I know that was Sven, but there was a lot of people involved in that too. Saliba is coming in this summer, loads of excitement about him. So it's kind of mix and match. There's one thing I do like. Yes, there are some deals that haven't really worked out yet, but Arsenal are also still utilising their very good scouting network to bring in younger players. So I'd be more worried if it was just Arsenal just going down the road of these big sort of international type aging players who were clearly just coming here for a bit of money, but they're not doing that. They're sort of mixing and matching, which is slightly more encouraging.
Right. And then just to take a step down, I guess one more level from that sort of management structure into the actual Arsenal manager now, in Mikel Arteta. What do you think the sort of internal view on his tenure is so far, both from sort of the people above and the players as well?
Well, the players love him. Players absolutely love him. They really do. Just whenever you speak to him after a game or before a game when we get the opportunity and you talk about Mikel, their eyes light up. They generally do. They are really, really impressed. And when you hear sort of David Luiz talking about him, and Luiz obviously a very experienced player. He's been there and done it and seen several top coaches, and you hear how Luiz speaks about him. I think says a lot for just how impressive Arteta is behind the scenes. And he is. I mean, for me as a journalist, I mean, it's not hard coming from Emery, who is just so bad. And so I think anyone, I'd have liked anyone after that. But it is just, I just sit there listening to Arteta, and you just get it. You find yourself nodding in agreement with him with what he said. He's just a really impressive guy, and the way he talks about football is really impressive. And I just really hope he can turn around, because my God, it needs a special coach to turn that lot around, because it's not a great squad. There's a lot that needs doing. There could be even more problems to come this summer in terms of losing your star man. Yeah. And it's a massive job for someone so young who's never managed before. It's a huge ask to turn this Arsenal around, because there's so many things that need fixing. But I think they're in good hands. I think it was a good appointment. I just wish they'd done it when they hired Emery. I just, he was so close to getting it then, and it just felt the whole Emery era ended up feeling like 18 wasted months. So I'm glad they've sort of changed it. They eventually pulled the plug on Emery and got Arteta in.
I'd probably argue to say that the last probably I'd say 4 years have been wasted years for Arsenal, to be honest, even before Emery, because Wenger was botching the job long before Emery even came into power. And I don't care that he's won FA Cups. In the league, he was massively underperforming. But the next question, or the next area I wanted to segue into, Charles, is about the transfer business now. Obviously, I don't think Arteta would have had the healthiest of budgets before coronavirus, but now with coronavirus, it's wishful thinking to see Arsenal making something like a similar sort of marquee signing like they did last summer with Pepe. So what I wanted to ask is, surely Arsenal should be looking towards the models of your Liverpools and your Chelseas, who have actually, even though they do have some element of backing, obviously Chelsea more so than Liverpool, they've been able to generate quite a lot of money off player sales. Like case in point, Danny Ings for Liverpool, 27 million. Brad Smith for Liverpool, 8 million to Bournemouth, 15 million. Jordan Ibe to Bournemouth. There's rumours this summer that Harry Wilson could be sold for figures between probably 15 to 20 million. Then you look at Chelsea, who have just sold Pasalic for 15 million to Atalanta, sold Jeremy Boga in the last year or so. So you get my point. So they find a way to generate quite a lot of money, which obviously drives their net spend down, which allows them to effectively spend more. And why haven't Arsenal adopted that policy? Because for me, it seems like there are a lot of players at that Arsenal squad who are not good enough for Arsenal and are still there. They're still earning a wage and they just can't be moved on for whatever reason. Why is that?
Because they pay them too much money. It's the similar. Arsenal have been dreadful. Like you said, selling players there can't be a worse club recently for selling players than Arsenal. It's just the money they've brought in for players has just been abysmal, absolutely abysmal. Like Liverpool, like you said, put them to shame in that regard. You said, look, they got 5 million for Serge Gnabry. They got 2 million for oh God, have I forgotten his name?
Who?
Oh my God, I can't even forget his name. French kid.
Ren Adelaide.
Yeah, Ren Adelaide. Sold him for 2 million. He goes for 20 million the following year. And just really, really bad decisions in the transfer market, time and time again. And they've been awful at doing it. So they've got to improve in that regard. They absolutely do. But the big issue they have with selling players or getting players out is the wages, because players just won't go. And it's going to be even worse from now, because you look at, they've been trying to shift Mustafi for the last 2 windows, but and they'd love to get rid of him.
Well, he's still there.
And El Neni as well. They'd love to get rid of him this window. Both of those coming into the last year. Oh, I'm not sure El Neni is, but Mustafi certainly is, and Socrates as well. You're not going to get money for Socrates really, but they're both into the last year of their contracts, and they would like to move them on. But these players are going to be looking at it, thinking we're getting a hell of a lot of money at Arsenal. No one we're going to move to is going to offer us wages similar to what we're on at Arsenal. So why on earth are we going to leave now? Why don't we just wait another year, earn that money, go next summer on a free when hopefully the financial outlook in football is slightly better and we're probably going to get better wages offered and we're going to get signing on fees. So Arsenal in a really difficult situation in terms of shifting players on. I mean, look at Mesut Ozil. They've been trying to get him out for the last few windows and he just refused to go. And fair play to him. He's getting 350 grand. He's not going to get that anywhere else. And so he's going to stick around for another year. And I think it's kind of the Wenger started it all when he brought in this wage bill that he didn't want massive earners. He wanted everyone to earn quite a similar amount, so there was no negativity in the change room. But it just worked out terribly because it just basically paid average players far too much money, and then you couldn't get rid of them. And
wasn't it Danny Welbeck who was on? Danny Welbeck was on something like
100K,
100K. Theo Walcott was on something like 140K a week. Like it's stupid. I think Xhaka's even on big money at Arsenal as well.
Yeah, Xhaka's on big money. Yeah,
you just say to yourself, Arteta needs cash this summer. Where's he going to get that money from?
Yeah, well, it's going to be a strike. He's not going to get much money. You look at the Aubameyang situation is the worst possible situation for Arsenal now. It was a bad situation before COVID, but now they're in a dreadful situation because, you know, in the summer, in January, there was interest. Chelsea were looking at him. Barcelona were interested, but Arsenal were making it known, you know, 50 million, we'd accept 50 million. Nothing else would get him out with 18 months left. And clubs weren't going to pay 50 million for him in January. At that point, Arsenal would have been thinking, well, we'll go to the summer. If he's not going to sign, we could probably still get 30, maybe 40 million for him just because of who he is and how he guarantees you goals. And then this all happens, and obviously the transfer. By the time this season now ends, he's only going to have about 10 months left of his contract, and no one's going to have any money. A, to offer Arsenal a decent transfer fee, or B, to offer Aubameyang the sort of wages that he would have probably been imagining he would be offered. And so Arsenal are now left in a situation that they're going to get to the summer or pre-season, whenever that may be, and like, well, what are we going to do? Because no one is going to give us what we want. We're probably going to get 10, 15 million offer for him now because of the financial climate, unless, say, someone who's been fairly protected, like a PSG, suddenly because they got rid of Cavani and they suddenly think, you know, do we not want another striker to really give us a chance? You know, is something going to happen with Neymar and Mbappe? I doubt it now, again because of the finances involved. But unless someone is protected from it all, one of the very few clubs offers stupid money, I can't see him getting more than 10, 15 million, 20 max for Aubameyang. And then you've got to weigh up, what do we do? Have we got a better chance of doing something next season with Aubameyang in our team? Or do we take 20 million? Because 20 million is nothing. You're not going to get a replacement for Aubameyang with 20 million.
And that's the point. That's what me and Dan and a few others have been discussing in the last couple of months. Because do you pick or twist this summer? If that 20 million pound bid does come in and you don't get a penny more, do you accept it or do you keep him? Because if you keep him, fair enough, you still get your top goal scorer, but you have no money. You have no money in the transfer window to improve the other positions you need, and he's going to be offering a free transfer next summer. And from a PR perspective and from a financial point of view, losing Aaron Ramsey last season on a free transfer and then losing Aubameyang a season and a half or 2 seasons later, it just isn't acceptable. It's ridiculous.
No, it's not. And
it wouldn't happen at any other club.
No. And when Raul came in, just after the Ramsey incident, he's made a quote saying that we're not going to get to that situation again. And if anyone gets down to 2 years and they don't agree to sign a new contract, we're going to sell him. And yeah, here we are with Auba, less than a year later. So yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible, and it's so hard for Arsenal fans to take as well. I think the Auba one's going to be interesting. I don't think he's going to be viewed as some sort of turncoat or a Judas. He's not going to be viewed as Van Persie if he does decide to go, because of the Van Persie one was different. He'd been at the club a lot longer. The club had stood by him through so many barren years when he was injured, and most people would have wiped their hands with him. And yet Wenger stood by him, eventually made him captain. Then after one injury-free season, he sods off and goes to United. So, and the way he left was so bad as well. So I don't think Aubameyang will be viewed like that. I don't think anyone's going to. If he does go and get his big move next summer on a free, all the blame will be pointed at the club rather than the player. And I think that's absolutely justified.
Before we go on to the next question, it's funny you mentioned Van Persie's pathway, because I actually think that is a pathway that Aubameyang's agent should be pushing for, because Man United, I know they've been affected by COVID, but they seem like one of the clubs who, I wouldn't say they're protected, because I know they took out that 150 million loan, but they seem like a club that will spend money on a player like Aubameyang this summer, someone who can actually bolster that attack. I know obviously they signed Igalo on loan until January, but I still think they need more firepower out on the flanks or up top. And I think Aubameyang fits that bill for them. So they should really be looking. They should really be looking at him as a summer signing, in my opinion.
Can you imagine the reaction if Arsenal flogged Aubameyang to Man United? Though, my word, it would be brutal. It would be brutal. I think there'd be protests outside the ground again for the first time since the anti-Wenger process. It would just be so hard for Arsenal fans to take. I agree with you. I think he would tick all the boxes for United. It's just whether these clubs look at him and think he's 31 now. He's on about 200 grand a week at Arsenal. Why they'll be looking at it thinking, we're in a situation in 10 months we can get him on a free. Do we really need to waive 25 million under Arsenal's noses, or should we just take him on a free? And that's the thing. I think Arsenal would have thought they would have definitely got decent bids for him. Even as close as January, they would have thought in the summer we're going to get good bids for him, and then this all happens. And now they're in a dreadful situation because I just can't see any clubs really offering us any sort of money that's going to tempt Arsenal into business. And he's going to go on a free unless he signs.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at the big grin on this face. It's just saying it's pretty depressing, to be honest. Like for me as well, if we look at Aubameyang's strike partner, let's say at Lacazette, so he's coming to his final 2 years, I think, at the end of this summer. So what do we think the prospect is for him? Because he doesn't look like he's going to be signing a new contract either. So
I thought he wants to stay.
Is he someone that could potentially be moved on as well?
I think he could be moved on, yeah. I think Arsenal really want to sign Thomas Partey, and from Atletico, he's a real priority for Arsenal. They really like him. They've liked him for some time. Arteta likes him. And I think, again, before COVID, he would have been quite accessible just because 50 million is not that much. That's what his release clause is, 50 million euros. And whether Arsenal could do that now, I highly doubt it. But Atletico have always liked Lacazette as well. And like you said, he's only got 2 years left on his contract. And as far as I'm aware, they're not close to. There isn't really talks looking like that's going to be extended at the moment. So I think this is a year they have to move. They have to move him on if he's not going to sign. They can't have another one of their star strikers going into the final 2 years of his contract. So they're going to have to make a decision on Lacazette. And if they can do something with Atletico that sees Partey coming this way and Lacazette going that way, I think that would tick the boxes for Arsenal. Because the box to box type midfielder. I mean, Partey's not exactly box to box, but they want a really dominant midfielder in that central area, and Partey certainly does that. From what I understand, he wants to come to England as well. He's keen on a move to England. He's well aware of Arsenal's interest. I
can't see that deal happening though.
It's going to be tough. It will only happen if they get some sort of swap deal, I think, because they won't be able to pay the cash. They won't be able to go there and dump the 50 million euros in La Liga offices to get him out on with a release.
Yeah, no, I actually meant I can't see the swap deal happening. The reason why I can't see the swap deal happening is because they were credited with interest in Edison Cavani.
Yeah.
They pulled out for whatever reason. Apparently, wages were a stumbling block. But they're a club who do shell out quite a lot in wages. I'm not sure what the impact is from a COVID situation, but I would imagine they might probably go back in for Cavani again this summer. And not to mention, they've already spent around 40 to 50 million on Morata a couple months back, and they've got João Felix as well. I can't see them losing, thinking that it would be worth losing Thomas Partey just to gain Lacazette.
Yeah, so I think it depends if Partey's saying to him, "I'm not going to sign a new contract." Then I think he'll have 2 years left as well at this stage. And, they've been trying to get him to sign a new contract for some time now. That's going to take that release clause up to like 100 odd million, but he's not signing it. And so it might be a case.
I thought there were talks to signal that he was interested in.
Well, he's not. He's certainly not signed it yet, and he's holding off to see what happens with this summer. So I think they're pretty clear. They know that he's not desperate to sign a new contract there. So that could be one thing. But I agree, it's going to be a tough one for Arsenal to do, absolutely. But it's one they want to do. I'm not saying it's definitely involved in Lacazette, but they want to get Partey here somehow. But the transfer market is going to be so intriguing this summer. It's going to be not just with Arsenal, but for everyone, because there's going to be such creative deals done, and it's going to be. We're not going to see anything like it before. It's going to be really interesting to watch.
The only way Partey is going to be seen at the Emirates this summer is if it's on FIFA clubs. Nothing else. Dan, I think you wanted to talk about your actual pre-season friendlies.
Oh no. But before we go into that, bit, I just wanted to talk about potential outgoings at the club as well. So, like, basically, there's been just a long list of players who've been linked away. I think we've mentioned a few of them already. So, like Socrates, Mustafi, Luiz, El Neni, Mkhitaryan. So, like, I think those are ones who are sort of stamped that the club want to, like, or have an appetite to get rid of. I think there's a few more that are a bit sort of up in the air, namely around sort of holding Mavropanos and Luiz and Granit Xhaka, and just wondering if you had any insight into what the future might hold for some of those players who it's a bit, neither here nor there whether they're going to be at the club next year.
Yeah, well, I think it's an interesting one with Arsenal. I don't think there's many players who are unsellable this window. I think they'd be willing to listen to offers for an awful lot of that squad if offers come in, because they need the money, and B, they're not really exactly the greatest of players, most of them. So you sort of look at defensively. I think there's going to be big changes defensively because Saliba's coming in. I think they'll turn the move with Pablo Mari into a permanent one. That looks like it's going to happen. But they've got a strong interest in Axel Disasi in France, who's not that expensive. He's only got a year left on his deal. It could only cost about sort of 13-14 million quid. And if they can shift some defenders on, then they might look to get him as well and really change things about defensively. But as I've already mentioned, it's going to be difficult to shift those players on. I've said already with Mustafi and Socrates, it's the same with Kolasinac. They'd be more than happy to get Kolasinac out this window. They've got Tierney, Saka's shown how well he can play at left back as well. And so they'd love to get Kolasinac off his books. But again, he's on well over 100 grand a week. And
yes, because he signed on a free transfer, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a free transfer. So they gave him loads of money. And it's going to be so hard to get Kolasinac off the books. And it just runs the whole way through the squad. Xhaka looked like he was definitely on his way out in January, but Arteta convinced him to stay. And Arteta likes Xhaka. He really does like Xhaka. So I'm not convinced they're going to that Xhaka will be one of the players he wants to move on. But Torreira, I wouldn't be surprised. He hasn't nailed down a starting spot under Arteta. He didn't even nail one down under Emery, even though he started so well. And Emery then basically ruined him by trying to play him as a Mesut Ozil type player, which I'll never ever understand.
Is that
Torreira?
Yeah, it's just so bizarre how he used Torreira. And I think there's a lot of interest back in Italy for Torreira, and just because I don't think he's not exactly settled in London, although he enjoys it at Arsenal. What we hear, he's not that settled in London, and the lure of going back to Italy is pretty strong with him. So if a decent bid came in for Torreira, I wouldn't be surprised if Arsenal considered it, especially if that might help with Partey.
I think we might make a decent bid, a cheeky bid for him as well, because I'm seeing us linked with Højbjerg, and my honest opinion, I don't think Højbjerg is a better player than Torreira when both are at their full capacity. I think make a bid for him. We need a defensive midfielder. Make a bid for him. I think he's a good player.
When Torreira signed, he was brilliant. When that first half of his first season, he was fantastic until Emery basically Emery'd him. He was just so good for the first half. He was nailed on for player of the season for me, and then he got started getting moved around, and they started playing around with Xhaka and Guendouzi too much, and he really struggled to regain his form after that. And I thought Arteta coming in was going to be really good for him, but Arteta seemed to settle on Xhaka and Ceballos before the break. It was beginning to work as well. They had a good little relationship going, and so I just think long term, if a decent bid came in for Torreira, it might be one that they consider. But there's most of the players in the squad, I generally think if a decent offer came in for them, that they would think about it. There's very few untouchable players. I think Leno, I can't see there would any way they'd sell Leno.
What about Tierney? I heard there were rumors.
I heard those rumors.
Chelsea and City in for Chilwell, which then would have a domino effect, and Leicester would be looking at Kieran Tierney.
Yeah, I'd be really surprised if Arsenal sold Tierney. They've wanted him for years, and they've finally got him. I'd be stunned if they sold him. But if somehow Chelsea signed Chilwell for 50, 60, 70 million, and then Leicester came and offered a stupid amount for Tierney, then Arsenal might consider it just because of where they are financially. But I think it would take a big deal a big offer to get Tierney out, because Arteta really likes Tierney as well. He's really impressed by him. And he's looked good when he's played. It's just unfortunately that first season's been so beset by injuries. He arrived injured, and just as he gets fit, he goes and dislocates his shoulder, and when he starts getting game time, and is out for the season.
Has he even played? Because if he has played, he's played against that Europa League.
Yeah, they were bringing him back in for the Europa League. And then he started playing a couple of Premier League games, and it was at West Ham where he got the injury when West Ham won. So I'd be really surprised. I think the sort of unsellables for me this summer would basically be Leno. I'd put Tierney in that bracket. I'd be really surprised they sold him, and Saka. Even though Saka's only got a year left on his contract, I can't see Arsenal even considering selling him, because I don't think anyone will offer the sort of money that would convince them to sell him. They'd much rather him stick around and have another year sort of trying to get him to sign that new deal. So, but other than that, I honestly reckon everyone's got a price in that squad, given the market. That there's not many players there they wouldn't consider bids for, I don't think.
Do you think it's likely that Saka will sign a contract? Because I think that would be another one that fans would be quite livid to see leave on a free transfer as well.
I hope he signs. I mean, from what I've been told, I don't think anything's close to that. I mean, Saka's in such a strong position now that he's got a year left. Everyone is chasing.
A year left on his contract?
Yeah, because he only signed.
Oh my God!
It's his first professional contract, so I think he got 3 years, and he's still only, because he's so young, that he's progressed so quickly into that senior level, and they haven't been able to get him to sign a new one because he's been getting so much interest after he broke through. And so they're in a really tough situation. That'd be a killer to invest all that time, money into developing it, and then for him to leave just after he breaks into the first team. But again, Arsenal in a terrible position. You've got Champions League clubs queuing up for Saka now. You got clubs from abroad banging on the door of his agent, offering him regular first team football, big money, and Saka's going to look at it because, well, you would, wouldn't you? Because he'll be looking at Arsenal's long-term prospects, and he's not going to be thinking he's going to be playing Champions League football with Arsenal anytime soon. So he would consider it. You just hope that love of the club and the fact all his mates are there will convince him to stay. But we've seen time and time again in football that's not always enough to keep players at a club.
Mm-hmm. And just finally, do you think there's any chance that Rob Holding gets sold this summer as well? Because some of the highlights I've been seeing of his, I guess, mini pre-season antics is not necessarily inspiring from an Arsenal perspective, and some of the performances he was putting in as he was coming in from January onwards in the first team, they weren't particularly fantastic either. So what do you reckon is the future for Rob Holding?
I think Holding really benefit from a loan, because he's come back from that injury, and you've got to remember how good he was before that injury. He was Arsenal's best defender before he got the injury that did his cruciate, and it's just been a real struggle for him because he's come back and he's not had any regular game time, which you really need after a year out. And I think cruciates as well, everyone sort of looks at it as 10 months out, but it's rarely that. You're looking at sort of 18 months before you start hitting your peak form again after an injury like that. And that's the sort of stage we're at with Holding now. But he's just not played any football. He's been brought in for the occasional game, so of course he's going to struggle. And I just think next year he needs to go out and have a full season on loan somewhere and see what sort of form he can get himself back into there. I think it's a little bit early to write him off, because I just remember how good he was before the injury, and I just think he needs game time. So I'd rather see him sent out on loan. For me, I'd rather Arsenal shift on someone, Mustafi or a Socrates, and then cut their losses on Holding yet, because I still think there's a very, very good defender there, Ben. I just think you've got to give him some game time and an opportunity to prove himself when fit again.
I wouldn't say very good defender, Charles. I think he's a decent defender at best.
he was decent when he was playing, when he was fit. And then you look back to his performances when he came in, and the Man City FA Cup semi-final, the Chelsea FA Cup final, how good he was. And last season I thought he was great, but he was definitely Arsenal's best defender. And so I think he's got the potential to be a very, very good centre-back. And I do worry that this injury's, what it's taken out of him, because I agree he's looked very, very suspect since he's come back. Yeah. The highlights reel yesterday didn't do him any favours against Brentford. But yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if a decent bid came in for him. I'm sure they'd probably look at it. But for me personally, I think a loan would be better for Holding, and give him a year out to sort of prove his fitness and see what sort of shape he can get himself back into.
Mm.
Nice one. So probably into the final section of this podcast is basically just around the rest of the season to come. So, like, obviously Arsenal have been doing their preparations. I think they beat Charlton 6-0, lost to Brentford yesterday in some very Arsenal-like defensive errors from the highlights I've seen. So it's like, what do you reckon is a realistic finish for Arsenal for the rest of the season?
Where they are now. I'd say. I mean, they've got an opportunity for the Europa League, but it's going to be difficult. They've still got a chance for Champions League, but you sort of look at it, depending on City. Stop saying no. clear a worried Spurs fan. But yeah, I mean, they've got opportunities, but I do think, I think Arsenal are going to be pushing it. It depends, because I think the Europa League places could come down, obviously, to maybe 7th or something. I think, depending on what happens in the cups, but it's going to be a struggle, and they've got some really difficult fixtures as well. Obviously we're starting at Manchester City, which is just awful. You got Liverpool to come. You got to go to Spurs as well. So they got difficult fixtures. So it's going to be a big ask to get themselves into European football places. But they've got an opportunity. But I think, I just think it's going to be hard. It's going to take a miracle almost for Mikel Arteta to turn that squad into a team as good as the sides above them. Because you look at it, like Sheffield United are above them. Sheffield United have been far better than Arsenal this season. Sheffield United came to Emirates and played Arsenal off the park at the Emirates. And Spurs are stronger than Arsenal. And you kind of looked at it before the break, and obviously Spurs had so many injuries and were in terrible form, and you thought there's a real opportunity here. But this break's really killed that. You think Spurs are going to be strong between now and the end of the season when they come back, and that's not going to help Arsenal at all. And Wolves, I think, are a great side, fantastically well organised, brilliant on the counter attack, very good defensively. So they're not going to drop many points. And you just look at Arsenal, you don't fancy them to. You wouldn't back them to win many games, would you? I mean, they could. They've got the quality to, but you wouldn't back them. You wouldn't back them as guaranteed winners in pretty much any of their games between now and the end of the season. So I think you're kind of looking at where we are now, 9th place, and that's about where Arsenal are right now. And I'd be surprised if they make too many inroads on those teams above them between now and the end of the season.
No, I think you got a chance of finishing above Sheffield United. And Sheffield United have got some ridiculously tough fixtures. They've got the hardest fixture list, probably, arguably, of any side in that top 10 position. So I think they're going to drop down a couple spots, as good as they've been this season. So I think Arsenal have got a good chance for 8th. I think you can get 8th.
I love the smile to break onto your face.
Yeah, the thing is, unfortunately, I can't disagree with anything that's been said there. Like, I just think, the only thing that maybe gives me a little bit of hope is that we are playing a lot of those teams that are above us. So, if we do manage to do anything in those games, it almost counts as double. But I actually don't have faith in us to do anything in those games. So it's just the on paper hope rather than anything that my heart or my head is telling me is going to happen, basically.
I think the break's going to be good for one way, because Arteta, since he arrived, Arteta's had no chance to really work with his players. It's been, he arrived in December and it's just been match. It's just always been about preparation for the next match. He would have been really looking forward to the summer and getting and having a real sustained period of time just working with the players on the training ground in pre-season, and he's had that ahead of schedule now because he's been able to do that the last few weeks since the return. So I'm hoping when we see him back, maybe not Manchester City because of how tough an arse that is, but after that we start really seeing what Arteta's blueprint is and how we're seeing a change in how they're playing, because they were doing better when the break came, and they started to turn those defeats into the draws into wins as well by the end of it, and they're still unbeaten in the league in 2020. Only teams who have done that, but a lot of those were draws initially, but they turned them into wins. They started turning them into wins. And so you're kind of hoping between now and the season, you just see genuine signs of progress. That's all I want to see. The season, look, it's been crap. It's been an absolute write-off from start to finish. It's been a disaster. And you just want to see progress now towards next season, because I am really excited about the direction Arteta is going to take Arsenal in. I think they've got really good young players at the club as well, which is going to be key over these next few windows, because the money's going to be so tight everywhere, and Arsenal's academy is one of the strongest around. So there's definitely, there's green shoots of things to cling on to for Arsenal, and I think they've got a top coach, a man who's going to be a top coach, and will get the best out of a lot of those players. But and so I just want to see signs of improvement between now and then. These last 10 games, something to cling on to going into the summer and next season, where you think, they're on the right track under him.
Wonderful. All right, that was pretty much everything that I had on my agenda there. Toby, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No. Good luck with this evening. You're going to
Cheers, Toby.
I'm going to look especially forward to your piece when Arsenal play us in a matter of weeks, and we're going to see how that pans out.
Well, won the title twice at White Hart Lane. We might as well go to a new ground and win there the first time we play. Well, it's all that laughter, but from Spurs fans. But at the end of the day, Arsenal won the title as many times in their history at Spurs. Yeah, Spurs won it overall. I mean, that's just the ultimate killer put down.
Yeah, it could be a put down. It's also a history lesson as well. But I'm one of those guys who lives in the present, Charles. I like to live in the present. So
what have Spurs done in the present?
I'm not answering that. I'm not going to get too into
it. So, Charles, do you want to let our listeners know where they can find you?
Twitter's at Charles_Watts, on Facebook as well. Just search for me there. And just launching into the world of YouTube in the last few months or so, sort of slowly building things up with that, which unfortunately I started just about 2 weeks before we went into lockdown. So it's just been a view of my boring bedroom walls behind me for a few months. But hopefully once we're out and about on the road again, there'll be much more interesting sort of behind the scenes videos to come from that. So do search for me, but make sure you put Charles Watts Arsenal into YouTube, because if you just put Charles Watts, you're going to get some Rolling Stones drummer pages coming up over and over again.
Nice one. We'll make sure to put the link to your channel on our YouTube description as well. So if you're still listening, make sure you follow at TapIn Football on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and make sure you like and subscribe to this video on the YouTube channel as well. Thank you.